5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hello and welcome to Truth, Beer, and Podsequences. So this is the podcast where my co-hosts and I listen to all of the local Cincinnati craft beer podcasts, and then we come together at our podcast host, BC's Bottle Lodge Montgomery, and give our version of the truth of how those podcasts went. Now, hopefully, there aren't too many consequences from the hosts of the other shows moving forward. I am Marco.
Too many more consequences.
I am Marco, and I am a brewer and a bartender here locally. And it's time to introduce the best co-host in Podcastlandia.
I am Julia, and I am a drinker of all of the Cincinnati craft beers, drinker of Cincinnati craft beers and beyond. I do not discriminate. I do not drink only Cincinnati beers.
Yeah, don't discriminate.
No, definitely not. So today is going to be a very special podcast because not only is it episode 39, so we are almost as old as I am in podcast episodes, but it is also someone's birthday here at BC's Bottle Lodge Montgomery. There's a big party going on next to us, so if you hear a little extra rambunctiousness, it is a group of amazing-looking women having an amazing time. And
to book your parties, just talk to producer Brian here at BC's.
Yeah.
So.
Brian or Ben or I guess are we pretty much good there?
Yeah, Ben. You can talk to Ben or
the other Ben.
Yeah.
So is it all B's in BC's now? Because Kenny was the K in BC's.
The K in BC's. No, Caleb's still around.
Caleb. Oh my God, I'm sorry, Caleb. You're not down here very often, so I apologize for leaving you off of my short list.
These are special events.
It is also a very special day. It is a world holiday that I think a lot of the people that listen to our show can appreciate. It is World Intellectual Property Day.
Hey!
So shout out to all the people that pay attention. And if not,
that's fantastic.
Good on you.
That's fantastic. I hope everybody's celebrating responsibly on International Property Day.
Speaking of celebrating and speaking of good craft beer podcasts, it would not be a good craft beer podcast if we weren't drinking good craft beer.
Yep.
So we both have the exact same thing in our glasses.
For like the past month.
Yeah, because it's so damn good.
It is good.
It is so damn good, and I'm going to be so sad when it is no longer on the slow pour handle.
That's the thing, right, Julia, is that you got to drink it when it's out, when it's around.
Yeah, you got to experience it. Don't save it. You got to just drink it and enjoy it while it's here, while it's fresh, while it is everything you want it to be. Marco, what are we drinking?
So we're drinking Rally Cap from Sonder Brewing in Mason.
Yeah.
If you follow the show, first of all, thank you for following the show. If you're new to the show, thank you for coming on board. I truly appreciate your listenership. Mm-hmm. If you are new to the show, we have been drinking Rally Cap for several weeks, and it's delicious. And you should too.
Yes. And also, if you're new to the show, you should follow us on social media. We are at Truth Beer Pod pretty much everywhere. If you have something you'd like to email us, we are truthbeerpod@gmail.com. All of our episodes are on YouTube, so search Truth Beer Pod on YouTube. Imagine that. And if you have any complaints about the show, we have a special account, a special complaint department just for those at Raging Hop on Twitter. He will go through the complaints. He will let us know the good ones, the bad ones, and we'll take all that into consideration for the next show. So, Marco, did you, in fact, listen to some Cincinnati craft beer podcasts this week?
I sure did.
Excellent. Did you happen to listen to both episodes 2 and 3 of the Brew Skies Happy Hour Season 2?
I did.
Good. Now, those were released before last week's episode of Truth, Beer, and Podsequences, but due to time constraints, we only covered the intro, so this week we're going to go over episodes 2 and 3. I also listened to the Cincy Brewcast where Gnome went down to Wooden Cask. How about you?
I did listen to that as well.
Most excellent. And a latecomer to this week's podcast palooza of recaps, Shift Beers, the episode all about Beth's cats.
That's right. I listened.
All right.
It took a lot because it came out late last night.
It did. We definitely have a cutoff, and they were very, very close to that cutoff. But we know that you, the listeners, love the burp count for Shift Beer. So,
oh, yeah.
So we did what we had to do to make sure that we brought that to you for today's show.
It's also another show that came out that we are going to recap next week. But if you have the chance to listen to it, go ahead and listen to it. It's the Jungle Gems
International podcast. Yes, they did
podcast.
another interview with the guys from 50 West. They did another beer for the Jungle Gems beer series. That one I somehow didn't notice that it was another beer-related episode, so we are going to cover that one next week for you guys.
Yep.
But definitely check that out. All their beer episodes with 50 West have been really fun, so I'm looking forward to talking to you about that next week.
Sounds good, Julia. All right. So, do we want to spin the wheel again and pick a podcast?
We can do that. Yes,
my shoulder was warmed up.
Yes, and for those of you who aren't sure what we're talking about as far as the wheel goes, our 0.5 episodes, we are now spinning the wheel of breweries to pick a brewery of the week to highlight their repeating weekly events. Why not? If your shoulders, well, I can spin it this time if you need to give your shoulder a rest.
Yeah, I do need to give my shoulder a rest because
all right.
Yeah, it just hasn't fully healed from
from beer, booze, box,
booze,
boys, bings, bobcats, boobs, and biscuits.
That's right.
I don't know. What are we going to... I mean, it's... Hopefully your shoulder's healed by the time the next one rolls around.
Oh, it's going to be ready.
We'll find out.
It's going to be ready. I'm going to be lethal.
Oh, all right. Well, let's spin this wheel here and see what's going on. It's a really big wheel for just 3 podcasts that we're going to be covering, but
I know. And there's a lot of dead space on those wedges.
Those wedges, yeah.
And if we hit the dead space, it's like, damn it, we got to spin again.
Yeah.
Well, what did we get, Julia?
We landed on the Brewcast Happy Hour, so we are going to go ahead and cover, again, both episodes 2 and 3. I think we'll go ahead and start with episode 2 just because numbers do it in order.
Right.
That makes sense.
2, then 3. That makes sense.
Yes. So episode 2, Brewcast Happy Hour, for those of you that don't remember our recap of the intro last week, it is a podcast that is hosted by
Brett Coleman Baker
of Urban Artifact, and Michael Morgan, a local beer author and college professor and lawyer, pretty much. He kind of has a bunch of different hats that he wears in the Cincinnati beer industry.
Yeah.
They're going to be going over kind of the history of craft beer nationally, not just Cincinnati-based. So this is going to be a really fun dive into all kinds of different craft beer topics that we might never really get to dig into if we stuck with purely Cincinnati. Episode 2, they had an absolutely amazing interview with the daughter of Jack McAuliffe of New Albion Brewing.
Yep.
And that was, I believe, listed as America's first craft brewery.
Yes. I know we're talking about episode 2 and then episode 3. They really came with the heavy hardware.
Oh God, they hit the ground running.
Yeah. I mean, these are interviews that just, if you just love beer history, not just Cincinnati history, these are people that are legends.
Yeah, the trailblazers, and I am still learning about craft beer, the history of craft beer. So I knew the name Jack McAuliffe. I wasn't super familiar with everything that he had done. I knew the name in episode 3. We'll get to Fritz Maytag. I knew some of these names, but I didn't necessarily know all of the stories behind these names and what they did. So this was really exciting for me to listen to. Jack was unable to really be a part of this podcast, so his daughter Renee stepped in to talk to Brett, and I don't know if he goes by Mike or Michael. I think he's pretty much Mike when Brett refers to him on the podcast.
Yeah,
I like to try to reference people by their preferred names, so we'll go with Mike. And if later on we realize that I was wrong, I'll apologize, even though he may never hear this.
Yeah, I don't think there's any reason that he'd need to listen to our show.
We'll find out. We'll see if he tweets into the complaint line,
right,
and go from there. So, New Albion Brewing started as a 1.5 barrel system back in '76.
Okay, so for those who don't know, 1 barrel of beer is 31 gallons. Is that right? So you got, 15 gallons, 15.5 gallons in a keg. That's a half barrel, so a full barrel of beer would be 31, I guess. Isn't
Fibonacci like a 1 barrel brewery? Or are they a little bigger than that?
I think
I'm trying to remember.
I don't know.
So about the same size as Fibonacci. For
Betty,
those
Bob,
of you,
add us. Let us know.
Yes. Betty and Bob, please let us know, because we don't want to get any of that information wrong. So Renee was actually adopted. She didn't meet Jack, who is her biological father, for until adulthood, pretty much. And the story about how they reconnected and how she kind of looked up, who are my biological parents, what's going on with my history, was a really, really cool story. I don't want to spoil it because I do think these are episodes that anyone interested in craft beer should listen to.
So there's the story, and then there's the story that they were looking to get from Jack's perspective, right? From his brewing history. But there's that whole segment of the story about how she even gets into this place, into the picture, and then all of the tales of the goings on. And I don't want to spoil anything that you have in your notes coming up, but it's really interesting. It's one of those, you just didn't see it coming.
No, not at all. Let's see, what else is there? So Renee got to take Jack to a bunch of beer events, Great American Beer Fest. She took him to a home brewing club in San Antonio, and this is something that I'm kind of reading directly from my notes, so apologies for the slight disruption of the cadence here. She took him to a home brewing club in San Antonio that was run by a sales rep for Boston Beer and Sam Adams. The lady that ran this called Jim Cook to say, "You have no idea who just walked in, who is joining my homebrew club. It's Jack McAuliffe. We've used his recipes in some of our things." Yeah,
I don't know how much we want to reveal to the listening audience, but okay, so now there's an interesting story about Jack's daughter.
Yes.
There's an interesting story about Jack going around to different events. There's an interesting story where Jim Cook comes into the picture.
Yes.
And so I just want to say it's all worth listening to.
It absolutely is. Again, even if you're one of those people that I'm only interested in Cincinnati craft beer, this is one of the founding fathers that without him, Cincinnati craft beer would not be what it is. And this story
and Jim Cook
is amazing.
Cincinnati craft beer.
Yes.
I mean, come on
it all ties together. There was, so one of the things in the episode, Ken Grossman, apparently he was a major pain in Jack's ass.
Right.
And look where he kind of ended up in the history of craft beer. So seriously, definitely listen to, and I don't want to say I feel like I'm wrapping up the podcast recap, even though we have one more episode that I want to go over. But man, they shouted out Blank Slate on the podcast. They talked about one thing that I thought was really cool. They touched on the women that were around both Jack and Jim Cook. Yeah. So I really hope that, and Brett and Michael, if you guys do happen to listen to this, I hope that we have an episode that kind of centers around women's role in craft beer history, because man, they play such an integral role in just this episode alone.
They did scratch the surface of that.
Yes.
I'd be interested to listen if they do go down that road more.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
To break open and be able to bring us inside those interactions, the probably amazing stories that these women have.
Right. I mean, even just being fixtures next to like the men, I'll say the beer barons, because I know that's what, like, Spring Grove Cemetery here, they do a thing on the beer barons of Cincinnati. But there are so many women that are directly related to, directly involved with, directly tied into the brewing industries, going all the way back here to like 76 in New Albion's case.
Right.
And you really don't hear a lot about that. You hear about whoever is that flagship person, which typically tends to be a man, and whatever, it is what it is. But I love that they touched on how important women were, both in the New Albion Brewing and Jack McAuliffe's story, and the Jim Cook, Sam Adams Boston Beer story.
Right.
And I really hope that they dig into that. Yeah.
You if you don't know the history and you don't know the story, you don't know where these winding roads start to connect and where they lead next.
Even just 2 episodes in, the connections that have been made, it's like, holy crap, this is all absolutely amazing.
Right.
So,
and we didn't talk about it in the beginning, but I mean, Jack has a a history in a job that he did where it lent him to be able to be somebody who could work with his hands and be able to put this brewery together. And they go through that story as well.
Yeah, they started it with just about $10,000, which is unheard of these days if you want to start any kind of business.
Yeah, I mean Brett and Mike go over it. I mean, it's not unheard of for breweries to start with
Millions.
$1 million bucks or $2 or $3 million bucks. And that's them trying to get a brewery off the ground and get started. It's like we're gonna get started. We need $3 million.
Yes. So listen to episode 2 of the Brewcast Happy Hour podcast with Renee McAuliffe. Well, I don't know if she goes by McAuliffe or not, but Renee, who is Jack McAuliffe's daughter, New Albion Brewing. Find out what museum there is like a New Albion exhibit in. Like it's a major installment next to another installment by someone else who shares my name. Kind of.
There you go.
There you go. That's your little teaser. Was there anything else on the Jack McAuliffe New Albion Brewing episode that you wanted to touch on before we move to episode 3?
So to give our listeners a little bit of insight when they go into listening to this podcast, they Brett and Michael are really great with the chemistry. They have great chemistry. They seem to have great chemistry with their guests. Just 2 episodes in to with the guests.
Listen to, yeah.
It's very interesting, and because both of them are so passionate about beer, but also very, very educated in their own ways.
Yes.
It is a very good listen. There is essentially the meat of the podcast, and then they take some time to recap their own podcast, which is really neat. And I'm not saying fast forward to the end because you miss all the good stuff.
Right.
But it is cool to have them talk about their takeaways from the show. Right.
And that's the last maybe 10, 15 minutes. The timing was different on both episodes, the amount of time that they spent kind of going, man, that conversation was great. Let's hope that we get to do this and this and this going forward. And here are the takeaways that we had. And
good stuff.
This is just a really, really fantastically done podcast, and I am excited to see the next couple episodes that come out. Yeah,
and it seems like it's done by a production company.
It does.
So I mean, I think they shout out a production company.
Well, it was
our
the
production
same company that
is
did,
Julia.
Yes. I also try to overshadow Gnome's producer David whenever I can during the weekly pint. So so Gnome, if you ever want to pay me back in beer, I'll take that. Otherwise, I'll just keep doing David's job for him, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. All right. Let's roll on.
Yes.
Episode 3.
Episode 3 with Fritz, Maytag, Anchor Steam, and Anchor Brewing.
Yeah.
Have you ever had Anchor Steam beer?
It's been a long time, but yes.
Okay.
I can't remember how I felt about the beer.
Okay. And that's fair. I don't know. I don't believe I've ever had it. I don't know if I've ever seen it, or if it was out there. I don't know.
When you see the package for Anchor Steam, you're going to like, I've
seen that. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So they actually talked directly to Fritz Maytag, which was really cool. Anchor Steam. So I thought this was kind of interesting. So New Albion was considered one of the first American craft breweries. Anchor Steam is considered one of the first craft beers. So I'm not sure. They didn't give a lot of dates in this episode for me to try to correlate New Albion, 1976, Anchor Steam or Anchor Brewing, kind of the time frame there. But I do like how they went back to literally the beginnings of what we recognize in America as craft beer for these first 2 episodes.
And if you recognize Fritz's last name, it's because, it's that family.
It is that family, yes.
Yep,
yes.
It is that family.
And it's because of that family that Fritz was able to do so many of the things that he did. He pretty much was involved, and they go into this much more in depth in the episode, but every valve, every gasket, every tube that connected this tank to that tank, he understood and knew, and even had a part in developing, depending on what the need was.
Right. Because when Fritz bought the brewery, he bought it with the intention to improve the product.
Correct.
And also not just improve the product, but by improving the product, grow the brand.
Right. And he first had that beer at an old spaghetti factory.
That's right.
Restaurant. To which, when I first started listening, I thought, wait, was the brewery like in the back of the old spaghetti factory? And then realized as the conversation went on, like, no, not quite. That's just where it was being sold.
Right.
But I really wanted it to be a brewery that was in like the back room of a pasta place, because my God, how amazing of a story would that have been?
What's also fun is that throughout the podcast, Fritz takes digs at Brett and his life's passion with creating sour beer, which is very fun. I'm not going to spoil. I'm not going to spoil the actual interaction. I'm just telling you that's fun. That it does happen.
I will say that. For someone, and it was tongue-in-cheek, so when I say this, please know that I'm not saying that Fritz Maytag was trying to insult Brett Coleman Baker or Urban Artifact, but man, Brett was almost giddy at the insults being thrown at him and his beer, like, oh my God, this is the highlight of my life, being insulted by Fritz fucking Maytag.
And look, he's sharp.
He is on it. One of the things that I thought about when I was listening to this, as you're listening to Fritz, Mr. Maytag, Fritz, I don't know. It's like I respect the guy, never met him, so I don't know. I'll just say first name, because why not? My first impression as I started listening was, this guy comes off as kind of an asshole, but an asshole that knows what he's talking about. And then as you listen to the episode, it started clicking in my head that it's not the correct words that I want to use just are not coming to me, but he is so passionate about the knowledge and learning about what is happening, which they cover in the last section of the podcast.
Buzzword. Knowledge.
The knowledge that he has and the passion for that knowledge, that's what he's imparting. Like, I wanted to know everything I could, so I was involved in, as I said earlier, every valve, every tiny little piece. But until they get to that part, till they really start digging into his passion to learn and just say, yeah, I could hire someone that could come in and just do this stuff, but I want to know how to do it. I want to understand it. It shifts from kind of sounding like a bit of an ass to he understands. Like he gets it, and he's trying to impart that passion back out. I don't know how to explain it, but it's it was so neat to like have all those cogs kind of slowly click into place for me and go, dude, I want to talk to this guy. I want to meet him and have him insult me when I want to drink.
Yeah, I absolutely get where you're coming from in that regard, and I think all of our listeners, if they listen, they will understand that as well. It's one of those things where you have to take a little while to understand a person's personality, and know that, understand the mannerisms and the cadence and the quirks and all of these little things. So that I get it.
And for anyone that listens to this episode, I don't want them to start listening and go, man, this guy sounds like a real jerk, I'm turning it off. Don't do that, because the story, the history, what he knows, what he has done was beyond amazing. I mean, even in part of the episode, Jeff Coors would have given anything to have what Fritz had with Anchor Brewing. And Fritz was trying to keep it a secret from everyone else. Like, I don't want these people knowing what I'm doing. I don't want to get super big and let all these, the big, macro beer companies know what we're doing to make our beer, to make it not sour, to make it not skunk. And once, like you said, once you kind of pick up on that cadence, once you kind of get that his presentation of what he is saying doesn't quite match the tone that he says it in, if that makes sense. My God, I listened to this episode twice because I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss anything as part of it.
And the recap at the end was fun as well. And they also talk not just about Fritz, but they also talk about Jack as well. And Jack comes up in the episode, and so does Ken Grossman.
Yep.
And, as mentions as part of the story.
Yep, Fritz gave Ken Grossman some of the best advice ever. I'm not going to tell you what that advice is. Any brewer, anyone that works in the brewing industry, or bartending, anything like that, will know that this is probably the most important rule or piece of advice to follow.
Yeah.
So definitely check that out to pick up on that. Fritz wore a necktie every single day because to him that was a measure of success. That was his way of presenting, I am successful, I am a businessman, and I am successful in my business, which you really don't see at all anymore. And he was a little salty that, you see brewers today and they're just in whatever street clothes they want to be wearing instead of, I guess, dressing the part.
Yeah,
But it's just different.
that's true. He did say that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that.
I don't think he was upset about it, but it was just two different eras, basically.
That's what it is.
Yeah,
I really feel. I really think that's the difference. A faded T-shirt with the brewery name on it by the brewer, or the typical button-up brewer shirt with the pockets on it. I mean,
Right.
those have replaced needing to have the necktie.
I agree. I would agree because you are directly promoting your brand, even without a necktie and a name tag. You're doing it with the name of the brewery on the pocket of your shirt or on on the logo that's there. Kind of a couple of the real quick things to touch on for this episode that you need to listen to find out the full story. He tried to get arrested. He tried to get arrested. His goal was to get arrested to promote the brewery and to raise awareness. So definitely listen to that. That was a very fun story. They actually managed to introduce a couple styles of beer to America.
Yes.
So you'll have to listen to find out what those styles are. One of them I like. One of them I'm kind of like, all right, I'm glad it's here, but
yeah, it's room for all of it. But I mean,
true.
Hey,
very, very true.
I mean,
very true.
And
the importance of knowledge. Like you have to have a passion for the whys. And that was something that Brett and Mike touched on a lot in their kind of end of episode recap from talking to Fritz, and the whole episode was amazing. This podcast series it's really exciting me. It's really just, I don't know. I can't wait for episode 4. Can't wait to see who they talk to next, or even if they just have a discussion amongst themselves.
Yeah, I think that would be
great.
I think that would be good as well. I'm excited for the upcoming content, and these were again. Can't say it enough, even though we've said it 100 times. It's a very interesting and a really, really good listen. Go check it out if you've got the time. I strongly encourage it.
Yeah, and if you do want to listen to, this is actually season 2 of Brewcast Happy Hour. Season 1 they did during COVID, and it was them talking amongst themselves and to other breweries and beer industries during COVID about how it was all impacting them, and gave some really, really cool insights to the behind the curtain of what these businesses were having to deal with to try to stay afloat. So definitely check out season 1 of the Brewcast Happy Hour as well. And as soon as episode 4 and beyond hits, we are definitely going to be recapping it for you. Was there anything else? Because I think that you at least need another beer. I'm getting close to needing another beer.
Yeah, no, you're right. I need another beer. So let's take a break, and we will be right back.
All right, you ready for... Do we want to spin the wheel again for the next podcast that we do?
I don't want to miss an opportunity for us to spin the wheel.
All right. Well, you let me know when you have all your stuff resituated.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm having to resituate stuff.
It's cool.
All this. Okay, arms ready.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back after very short break to you, not a very long break to us. Marco, what is in your glass right now? That amazing, gorgeous-looking BC's Bottle Lodge Mug Club mug that you have?
Yeah, I have Waning Daylight, which is a red ale from Yellow Springs Brewery, American Amber, 6.2% ABV.
Excellent.
Tasty.
I decided to step it up a notch, and in my BC's Mug Club mug, which I just got today, and it is gorgeous, and I love it. It's beautiful.
Really, really good.
I love my higher gravity ceramic stein.
Yeah.
Like, that is my favorite vessel to drink out of at home, but I love this thing for when I am here at BC's.
Yeah, it's
and
awesome.
They did the artist did an amazing job. I have it full, well, tulip size pour full of Stone's Japanese Green Tea IPA, which is really freaking good, but it's a 10%er, so I could be having a lot of fun by the time this mug is empty.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, let's get to the fun.
Let's get to it. So, did you know what podcast you wanted to do next, or do you want to let the wheel decide?
I thought we spun the wheel.
We spun the wheel for the very first.
Okay, let's go.
Podcast.
Spin the wheel.
Okay, spin the wheel again.
All right, hold on.
All right. Wheel is a spinning. The wheel. Do you remember that old Bridgestone tire commercial? The wheel goes round and round. There was a whole song on it, and everyone loved the song and wanted the song to be released as like a full length thing and not just like the little 10-second clip from the commercial. This was years ago. This is a very long time ago.
I don't recall, but
No?
I'm sure
Okay.
once I
If you
see
heard
it,
it.
yeah, I'm sure
I'll try
it.
to find it too. I'll try to find it and send it to you.
Okay.
But our both the wheel of breweries of the week and the wheel of podcasts landed on the Cincinnati Brewcast.
Cincinnati Brewcast.
The fanciest of the podcasts that we recap.
Yeah.
Where the gnarly gnome went down to Wooden Cask and talked with Randy and Karen about everything that's been happening since pretty much his last episode with us. Oh, they're singing happy birthday.
That's awesome.
Should we pause or should we let it go on in the back?
Let's go.
Let's just go.
Lean into it.
So the last time that the gnome recorded with Randy and Karen was March 2nd of 2020. Which was right before everything shut down. So I don't want to say that episode caused the shutdown, but the timing kind of leads you to think that maybe they caused the shutdown.
Yeah. Well, they're pulling out of it.
Yeah, I mean, great beer. So I'm not upset about anything, but there was a lot of shower beer talk in this episode.
Yeah, there was.
A lot of shower beer talk. So if you guys go down to Wooden Cask, and if you see Randy, ask him if he's had a shower beer yet.
That's right.
Because I'll be interested to know what he has had for a shower beer. Does he have the what's it called, the Shakuzi that Gnome's been promoting? Which I'm sorry, but Shakuli, I believe that's it. They need to sponsor him. So I know that Shakuli is a big part of our listenership. Shakuli users, the Shakuli company, Shakuli.com. Definitely reach out to them and say, yo, you need to sponsor the Gnarly Gnome and the Cincy Brewcast, so more people can get more involved with their shower beers. But yeah, there was a lot of talk of shower beers, not a lot of talk about rotating shower floors, which we talked about in a very early episode of Truth Beer Consequences.
Yeah, the rotating floors.
Yeah, I mean, it's all part of the whole shower beer experience, which if you have enough shower beers, the floor will spin whether it's supposed to or not.
Correct.
Let's see, what else happened with Wooden Cask? They are going to start having gold wax-dipped bottles with sparklers embedded in them. And the way to open the bottle is you light the sparklers, which then will melt the wax. And then you can pop the top and get into the absolutely amazing beers that brewery puts out.
Brilliant idea.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, Randy and Karen certainly are doing a great job out there, and their brilliance just continues.
They know where it's at. They're not going for the crazy pastry stouts and the 30 hopped New England IPAs. Instead, they're making the same amazing beers that they always have been making. My God, I have not had a bad beer from them.
And they do
I think
a
Corruption is
year-round.
one of their one of my favorites.
It's a year-round barrel-aged beer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Corruption.
Yeah, and it's delicious. They have a barrel-aged Scottish ale that I don't know if it's year-round or not, but my God, that thing's delicious. But instead of going all out with, again, like the pastry stouts, the crazy hopped and dry hop, the pasty stouts, instead of putting a whole bunch of extra shit into their beer, they're putting a whole bunch of extra shit into the wax that seals up the bottles of their beer, which I think is a really clever move. Very clever move for them.
Yeah, and probably, it's going to be a novelty. It's definitely a novelty.
Yeah, it's not going to be on
things.
Everything, but
it's one of those things where, there's going to be some people in beer groups, showing their verticals of all of these
of all the
novelties.
Right. It's going to be all about the wax tops and not so much the beer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I really, really like it. Let's see. They are. I couldn't tell if they already have because I haven't been down there in a while. But they are expanding to a new retail location at Newport on the Levee, which is super awesome. I believe they are there as well.
Yeah, I think they're there.
I haven't been to the Levee in quite a while, not since the Levee started kind of its whole big revamp that it's been doing the last 2 or 3 years. But I think that's a great way to get more people just directly across the river. You don't have to go all the way down. I know that people complain that Darkness or Alexandria Brewing are like too far, and I'm using air quotes for those of you not watching the live stream. But Wooden Cask is literally 3 minutes across the river. There is no excuse not to go there. And now that they have a location or will have a location on the levee, literally no excuse not to go there and have all of the amazing beers that this company's putting out. Let's do it.
Let's go. I mean,
so
tell me what day and I'll put in for my jobs and we'll head over there.
All right. You'll just Uber down to my Josh and I's house.
We'll make sure my wife's
drive from
off
there.
and we'll drive.
Yeah. Okay.
She'll drive.
Sure. Whatever works.
So my wife drives when we go
When
out.
you go places?
Yeah,
I drive.
when we go places.
You need to talk for a minute or two about how dark beer has a range from light and crisp to heavy, viscous, and sweet, while I drink some more of my beer.
And that's true, right? So the Gnome has brought up, and it's been brought up on this show, about beers that have color to them, whether it be amber going all the way to black is
motor oil,
right? So a darker beer is only just that. It's a beer that has some tint, some color, all the way to black. And in that spectrum, there are also these perceptions out there that once you get a beer that is darkest of dark, that it also has to be, chewy thick.
Super heavy, super sticky,
heavy,
super sweet.
Yeah,
and that's not it, right?
It doesn't have to be, and if it's not, that doesn't mean it's wrong,
right?
So if the intention of the brewer was to put out a beer that was deep in color, full in flavor, but not sticky, not thick, not rich like that,
with sugar,
then that's okay too.
Yeah,
and that's. Unfortunately, the loudest 1% on beer Twitter think that they're the authority of what is right in beer, and so when a beer comes out that is a dark beer, but it is lacking in the stickiness, the thickness, the adjuncts, and all these things, they may think that it's not for them, and that's fine. You can not like that beer. And you may think that it's not for you. Number one, it's not technically flawed. As long as it's not technically flawed, that's fine.
Right.
And number two, who cares? It's just your opinion.
Right.
And so if a porter or a stout comes out and it's not super heavy and super thick, that's okay too. If that's what the brewery intended to do. Right.
And Wooden Cask, I think a lot of that misconception comes from, a lot of barrel-aged beers in the past have been these super heavy, super dark styles. Wooden Cask has proven they have barrel-aged beers that you can drink year-round, the hottest months of the summer to the coldest months of the year, because they balance them out incredibly well. Not everything at Wooden Cask is barrel aged, which I think is another thing that this
cask.
Conversation, right? Or cask. They definitely did dig into what is a cask beer. I started Googling it and kind of went down a rabbit hole. But definitely listen to this episode for a discussion about cask beer, what it is, how it's done properly or not properly.
And if you don't know Randy's history, you get to find out a little bit of his brewing history.
It is very true. Like, I was not aware of their relationship to a now defunct brewery.
Yeah.
Which, if you know, you know. If you don't know, well, listen to the episode and you'll learn, you'll find out. But I thought that was really cool, and I do think it's a little unfortunate that people still associate Randy and Karen with the past, because it sounded like they were out of it before a lot of other stuff happened.
Yeah. They were.
But
True.
I mean, I think that they're doing amazing stuff down at Wooden Cask. Josh and I have been down there. Josh and I have been down there twice, I believe. And man, it is so good. And yes, barbecue is the perfect food to have in a brewery. Pizza's kind of overdone. Pizza works really well, but barbecue, there is something about having amazing smoked meats and amazing beers, especially barrel-aged beers.
Yes.
That is like the perfect combination. So when we do our West Side of Northern Kentucky brewery tour, Marco,
Okay.
we will hit up West Side Brewing. We will hit up Wooden Cask. We'll go to Darkness, and then we'll all experience Alexandria for the first time.
Yeah, I haven't.
And
I've been to
hopefully
Darkness,
we can get
but not
home. Oh, you have been to
Alexandria.
Darkness?
Yeah.
Okay. What about Brewcast? No, you haven't been to
I haven't
Brewcast.
been to
That's what I
Brewcast.
meant. Okay, so you've been to Love Darkness, but we'll go to Brewcast since you haven't been there.
Okay.
Holy shit, that place is awesome. So if we're able to make it home after all those breweries, we didn't do it right.
Okay.
So to the owners of Alexandria Brewing, if you're our last stop, we may need to camp out overnight. Just throwing that out there. But
Andy?
yeah, back to one of the Andys, one of the bazillion Andys. Yeah, Andy from Alexandria, which I got to meet him at before Braxton's Dark Charge Day. Josh and I went to drop off some stuff to the Gnome that we had gotten from Sean at Nostalgia Brewing. Met him down there.
Shout out to Sean.
Hell yeah. Sean, you are freaking amazing. That's another thing. Marco,
yeah, we need to get up to
Marco
Nostalgia.
and I want to take a Columbus brewery tour where we hit up Nostalgia and State Line, Heartline. Shit, what is the brewery that's right up there? It's like right down the street from
I
Nostalgia.
really don't know.
It's
Flatline.
it's not flat. It's not Flatline. And then I want to go to Noctera purely because I love their moth logo. So
Okay.
So yeah, Marco and I need to get up there. We need to get down to Northern Kentucky. All these places.
Yeah.
But yeah, Cincy Brewcast. There was a really cool talk about picking out barrels for their
Right.
barrel-aged beer, and how like the temperature in the warehouses that hold these beer, or I'm sorry, not the beers, that hold the bourbon and the whiskey before all that's pulled out. Like a lot of the stuff they get is from New Riff.
Right.
But they've also done some stuff from Buffalo Trace, I believe. And man, just the whole talking about sensors in the warehouse so that the distillers get an idea of, hey, you know, these barrels on the top floor are at this temperature, while these barrels at the bottom floor are at this temperature.
Right.
That was super cool to hear about. Like in something you don't think about, but that makes perfect sense, that a barrel from two barrels aged the exact same amount of time, one on the top floor of a warehouse, one in the cellar of a warehouse,
Yeah.
they're going to have completely different profiles.
Oh, yeah.
Once you pull from them, once they're ready. So
Oh,
that
yeah.
was super, super cool. Also, apparently no one likes to have nuts in their beer.
Yeah. Not,
No,
have I?
no nuttiness.
I have had. I did make a beer with peanut. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I haven't done any of. I haven't done cashews, almonds, pistachios. I haven't done any of those.
Yeah, this was more focused around the chocolate praline stout that they were talking about, and which is basically a sugar-covered nut.
Okay.
But
yeah,
they
and
did go into no one wants nuts dipped in their beers.
praline.
Which you could take.
I say praline.
Praline.
I'm from the South. I say
That
praline.
works. That works. I could be pronouncing it wrong. I've always heard
No,
it
it's
as
your
praline.
truth.
Who knows?
It's okay.
That is my truth. I have a shirt that says "That's our truth" on it.
That's true. You do.
Huge shout out to Rachel
Shout out
for
to
the
Rachel,
freaking
my wife.
amazing bomb ass Truth Beer Pod shirts. We finally have shirts for the podcast, and Rachel, my God, thank you.
For
thank you.
just us.
for just
us.
Hey, we have the special ones. Eventually, we will, if there is interest, we will roll out
Right.
slightly more generic, potentially Truth Beer Pod shirts for the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm gonna wear one to Higher Gravity tomorrow.
do it.
I wore one to Higher Gravity last week.
You did. I stopped by and I said hi to you, and you had on
I did.
your We've Had Beers
That's right.
Truth Beer Pod
We-
shirt
we've
from
had
Rachel.
beers.
It was awesome.
And next time you stop in, remind me to pour your beer in your in your stein.
stein.
Yeah. You ordered a beer and I just poured
Put
it
it
in
in
a
a
regular
glass.
pint glass.
It's fine. No, well, can you make me a cocktail? Can you make me an old fashioned
Oh,
and
hell.
put it in my Higher Gravity Stein Club stein?
Sure.
nice.
Sure.
You guys heard it. Marco said it. It's got to happen.
Good.
He's got to do this.
2 Saturdays ago, it was like the old-fashioned bar. It was like, I mean, it was just like another old-fashioned after another old-fashioned after another.
So
you
should
guys
be
love old-fashions.
So you should be a pro at making them. Okay, so this is why old-fashions are such a big deal to Marco.
Well, we were talking about bourbons and barrel picking, and now we're talking about old-fashions.
Now we're talking about old-fashions. So, but prior to that, you had provided us with an old-fashioned inspired beer from Narrow Path.
Amazing.
Multiple episodes ago. It's the episode.
Amazing.
The title is, I think, like the World of Podcraft. It's like a World of Warcraft theme. It was the one that my Josh was on. That beer was absolutely amazing. Josh is still like, hey, do they have that on tap? Do they have that on? I'm like, they're never going to have that on tap. That's going to be like a hidden behind the bar kind of thing.
And we just kept saying over and over and over again how good it was. That went on a little long.
It went on, but it was still a lot of fun. So this past weekend, Marco and I, if you didn't hear last episode, we share a birthday. I didn't ask you what you did for your birthday, but Josh and I and my mom, shout out to my mom. Thank you so much, Mom. We went out for dinner, and the restaurant, the steakhouse we went to, I was like, oh, you have old-fashioned. Can you make me an old-fashioned? They made it with, I wasn't paying attention, so it's kind of on me. They made it with brandy and not bourbon.
Oh, what the hell?
So...
What the F?
What the F? Shift Beers, can we steal that button from you guys? Because we need a what the F. I guess I can make one ourselves, but it's not the same.
The she.
Oh, let's.
Oh, you saw over the weekend. Here we go.
Okay, so hold on.
Shit.
Over the weekend, my Josh and I got to hang out with everyone's favorite podcast host.
Guest.
He kind of was a host.
Well, yeah.
I'm going to make him a host, just so you know. Sorry, Marco.
That's fine.
Sorry, not sorry. No, one of our most favorite and Shift Beer's most favorite guests ever, Lee. We went to the FC Cincinnati game on Sunday, had an absolutely amazing time hitting up Standard Beer and Taft's Ale House and Over the Rhine beforehand. Lee, I love your dog. I'm so happy that we got to hang out. And yeah, old fashions, they should be made with bourbon, not brandy.
Right.
That's how I'm tying this all together.
And call your bourbon.
Yeah. All right, Wooden Cask. What else do you have on this episode? It was a long episode.
It was.
But it was a really good conversation.
It was a good conversation. I had it on 1.5 speed, and it was a very good flowing conversation.
It was.
At 1.5 speed.
It absolutely was.
I think it maybe would sound a little rushed maybe at anything faster than that, but it moved along well. Mm-hmm. They talk about, again, like we said, all the way back 2020 to now.
Yep.
And also interesting, they go even further back and talk about when they were business planning for Wooden Cask itself.
Right, which is really cool to hear.
That is really cool because some things in some major things in the Cincinnati beer scene changed.
They did.
So then they had to think about, those changes.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody at the baseball game.
Well, yeah, it's the Reds. Who the fuck cares about the Reds? They suck.
So disappointed.
They suck.
FC
Cincinnati sucks too, but you know what? The Reds suck more, so.
Okay, sorry to interrupt you.
All good. Hey, you know what? This is a sports ball podcast in disguise. We've discussed this multiple occasions. Yeah.
I'd rather watch the cornhole championships.
Go back in time and listen to the Wooden Cask episode of Cincy Brewcast that aired somewhere around March 2nd of 2020, and then listen to this episode of Cincy Brewcast with Wooden Cask that aired Monday, April the 25th of 2022.
They're so bad. What have they won, like 3 games? They're so awful.
Didn't they just break their 11-game losing streak?
Yeah. And they have a pitcher who has the most pitches over 100 miles an hour. And it doesn't matter because they still lose.
Just because you throw fast doesn't mean you're throwing accurately or well.
Right. He gets rocked for 3 home runs or whatever. The faster it goes to the mound, the faster it goes out.
The last time that I paid attention to the Reds was when Barry Larkin and Chris Sabo were all part of the whole rigmarole.
Were we?
Yeah.
Were you in your teens at that point?
I was in freaking grade school. Okay. I used to collect baseball cards way back in the early mid 80s. I think I do. They're probably all permanently attached to the plastic sleeves that I put them in.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, I do still have.
That'd be cool.
Those. Yeah, I'll if I remember,
Yeah,
I'll
bring
bring
them in one day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we will have a bonus episode where all we do is flip through like Julia's baseball card collection from like
Love it.
1986 or
Love it.
87, which
I'm
is
here for that.
before like I think 90% of the people that we recap their podcasts of were even born.
Right.
So, God, okay, so when we get to Shift Beers, when they were talking about, oh, I was in college at this year, I'm like, Jesus Christ, I was already married for 10 years and divorced by the time you were out of high school. This is depressing.
These wee lads.
On that amazing note, do you have anything else on this episode of the Cincinnati Brewcast with the Gnarly Gnome and Wooden Cask, Randy and Karen Schultz?
No, it's a lot of fun.
It was. I really liked it.
A little bit longer as far as time frame, but it was a lot of fun. It was very informative, and they had a good time. They sampled a bunch of different beers, and
they all sounded amazing. I've had one or two of the beers that they sampled, but it was a full flight. It was 8 or 9 beers on the flight. That's a good time right there. That's a good time right there.
And it just again is one of those things where it makes me say, hey, mission accomplished, good information, and I really want to get out there.
Yes, we'll schedule it. We'll figure out a day that works the best with your schedule, and make sure it works so that you don't have to request off from like 15 different places.
Yeah,
let's do it. All right, let's take a real quick break and see what's going on with producer Brian and the birthday bash that is happening right next to us, and we will cover our last and probably. I'll say it, our favorite podcast that we get to cover, Shift Beers. All right, you good, Marco?
Yep, I'm good.
Hell yeah. So I am still drinking slowly my 10% IPA from Stone Brewing, the Japanese green tea IPA. What is in your... It is a plastic cup. Did you get High Life?
I did.
Oh. Hey, you know what? Beer is beer. So, cool. If you enjoy it, I'm good with it.
It's a beer.
It is a beer.
So, there we go.
All right. So, we have one podcast left.
Yeah, left.
I don't know what words are
That's
anymore.
it. You know what would be fun?
What will be fun?
Okay. All right.
Tell me. Let's do it.
What if we spun the wheel
Okay.
and it's only one space
It's true.
and it didn't land on Shift Beers and then we just say fuck it and
We don't cover
go
it?
have like margaritas and chips and salsa or something.
So would we still give the burp count if we don't cover the podcast, or would we?
Whenever we cover it, like if we cover it next week, then we give the burp count next week.
So what you're saying is it is all up to the wheel.
Yeah.
And if the wheel lands on a blank space,
we're shutting it down and going.
No burp count, no Shift Beers recap. We just end the podcast. Dude, let's do it. Let's do it.
All right. Let's spin the wheel.
I love it. All right. Is your arm warmed up?
There's a Mexican food right across the street.
There is, and it looks good.
Shout out to El Jinete.
Let's do it. I want Mexican, so I'm kind of hoping the wheel does not land on a space.
All right, fuck it. Spin the wheel.
Let's do it. All right, here we go. It's going. Oh, it's slowing down. It's getting close.
You gotta be shitting me.
God damn it.
You gotta be shitting me.
God damn, I wanted a fucking taco.
You gotta be fucking shitting me.
Like, seriously, there are like five, not even five. There are there are 9 empty spaces on the wheel, and it fucking landed on Shift. God.
Hit the button, Julia. Shit. All right, we're in it. Okay, we're in it. We'll do it.
We'll talk about Shift Beers. It's fine. It is our job.
No, it's fun. It's what we're doing. It's what we're doing.
I just really wanted some tacos and
maybe next week.
Hey, you know what? Or depending on what time we wrap this shit up.
Yeah.
Right after this.
Get the hell over there.
We'll both chug the beers that we have, and we'll get the hell over there and have some tacos. Yeah, there you go. Perfect.
Right.
Episode 77, Old School Bangers, a.k.a.
That was one of my nicknames in high school.
Or this episode is also known as Shift Cats, because they spend 90% of the time talking about Peggy and Nacho. So you're going to have to listen to... I mean, you'll figure it out by the time we're done with the recap on who Peggy and Nacho are.
Yeah.
But
Nacho
cat. He is a big fat orange cat.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are we recapping? Oh,
I mean, we're kind of committed to it at this point.
We did. The wheel landed on Shift Beer, so I suppose we are. Corey made them food. I say,
Was
Beth,
it cornbread?
Yeah, and it sounded amazing. So, Beth, what do we need to do to have Corey make some food for Truth Beer and Consequences, and you just drop it off at BC's Montgomery on a Tuesday?
Nice little snacky snack.
That's it. We're not asking you to stay. I know that you would rather, like after your long day at work, that you just want to go home. If there is something we can do to get Corey to make us food that you drop off to us.
And he made jerky one time too,
my
didn't
God,
he?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and gumbo and all kinds of just...
We need to have a gumbo throwdown.
I'm telling you.
But I don't want to hurt his feelings.
They recorded
so.
at Beth's house, at Beth's abode, and Corey made them food, and we're totally not jealous about that, but yeah. There was food involved, and it made me hungry.
That's
and it's
good.
making me hungry again listening to this. Shift Cats. This episode was 99% about Nacho and Peggy.
Yep.
There were pictures on their social media of the cats.
Cats.
And I need to know how I can pet the cats, which sounds
Between
wrong
the
now that I
burps and
say
the cats,
that.
it was Cats the musical. Burp.
Yes, it was all about reflections off of watches and, the cat's going to take the dead cat, which is like the little furry thing that goes over a microphone. We don't have those. We just have the foam stuff.
Yeah.
But it was this episode of Shift Beers, episode 77, was all about the cats and not very much about the beers.
And who was
But I'm
there?
okay with that.
Who was present?
Almost everyone. You had the Button. You had Beth because it was her house. That would
Shocker, right?
That would be really,
Shocker that
really
Brian
weird.
showed up.
Hey, well, he knew that there were cats. He knew he would get to pet
that's
some
what it
pussies.
was.
So he showed. Oh, I'm sorry, pet some cats. So he showed up. For that.
It was really for Corey.
They recorded at Beth's, and they decided to do a show about old school bangers, beers that they drank way back in the day that they maybe really don't drink as much anymore. It was a pretty cool episode. They touched on things like Fat Tire, Breckenridge's Valley Porter, Sculpin. They specifically said the Grapefruit IPA.
Right.
And it was a lot of fun.
Red
kind
Dog.
of going. Yep. Red Dog.
Schlitz.
Red Dog. There wasn't. This is going to sound so terrible. There wasn't as much Schlitz as I thought there was going to be.
Julia was ready for the Schlitz show.
I can't say that name without a straight face, even though I know it's like a legitimate old school beer name. But it's like, hey, you want a Schlitz? It's like, I don't.
I'm sorry, I'm not.
I don't.
I
don't
think
think
I've been
so.
violated.
Maybe, exactly. Exactly. You feel incredibly violated by
You want
being
a
cast
Schlitz?
for that.
Oh, wait a minute. We just met.
Oh my God. Luckily, all of the Schlitz were kind of intercepted. Well, God, this doesn't sound any better the more I try to say it. Nacho was, I believe, the star of the episode. Nacho played a key role in making sure that everyone present was entertained. And we also found out which which alcohol fest gets people the most trashed.
Oh, it's great.
Like between beer fests, bourbon fests, wine fests, barrel-aged fests, cigar fests. Which one would you think gets people the most absolutely wasted, puke in the lobby, gone?
Right.
It's not what you'd expect, which makes me wonder, this weekend is Seltzer Fest. And, okay, so you don't normally think of seltzers as the get drunk until you puke kind of beverage. But do you think that Seltzer Fest is going to cause more issues with people being blackout wasted than the festival that Shift Beers said, or that like Beth talked about, being the most blackout drunk festival? Yes or no?
I think Josh is planning on getting white girl wasted.
They talked a little bit about Internet Rule 34 for probably more minutes of the podcast than they needed to. Are you familiar with any of the Internet rules? Or was that kind of... I feel like some of our...
I feel like... Okay, I'm going to say no.
Okay.
How about no?
Do you want to know what Internet Rule 34 is?
Sure.
Okay. They didn't cover it in the podcast, so I'm not spoiling anything, but Internet Rule 34 is if it exists, there is porn of it. Whatever is out there, whatever you can think of, there is porn of it. That is Internet Rule 34.
Okay.
It's a terrible rule.
Okay.
But it's an accurate rule. So always be careful when you Google anything because, my God, the most benign phrase you can think of, someone is a sick motherfucker and there is porn of it out there.
Okay.
So they did talk a little bit about Rule 34. I don't want to talk too much about what Shift Beer said about the porn and about Rule 34 because that is definitely something that you should listen to the episode for. But yeah, they put it out there. The one final thing, I didn't have a lot of notes on this episode, to be perfectly honest, because it was about the beers that they drank back in the day that really they don't drink anymore. Things like Fat Tire. Good freaking God. I'm sorry, guys. Breckenridge's Vanilla Porter and what you mix Breckenridge's Vanilla Porter with for absolutely amazing tasting stuff. Like Sculpin's IPA, they specifically drank the grapefruit IPA in this episode, which they talked about the habanero IPA. I have been looking for that. I don't even know if they make it anymore, but I love spicy things, like hot, spicy things. If I can find that somewhere, I absolutely want to try it. I'd give it a shot.
I had a habanero IPA on at the place that I brew at for a year, and it was awesome. It was awesome.
I need it. If anyone can find any of it, I don't care if it's like been in a can for 5 years and is probably disgusting as hell. I need to try it. I need it.
Maybe you can get it if we drive to Chicago.
Okay, let's do it.
To Sculpin.
Let's do it. To Sculpin? You mean, yeah. All right.
Yeah, at Plastic Knife Point. Because they probably have plastic knives there because they probably serve barbecue.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my God, barbecue and beer. There is nothing better. And this ties back into Cincy Brewcast. Barbecue and beer is the shit. Jangle, I'm calling you out. You said that there is a flat earth monument in Hamilton, Ohio. You are incorrect, sir. It is the Hollow Earth Society's monument. I went there a couple months before Gnome went there, actually. I saw it and I'm like,
wasn't Gnome there?
Gnome did a whole YouTube video on it. It was really cool. And I'm like, holy shit, I heard about this a couple weeks or a month or two or something before Gnome heard about it and went out there and did his vlog about it. But it is the Hollow Earth Society or theory and not the Flat Earth, which I have to say, between the two, the Hollow Earth theory is much more interesting. And I want to say we talked about that a little bit on an episode many, many, many months ago. But look up the Hollow Earth Society. If you're I'm assuming if you're listening to this, you are near the Cincinnati area. Take a trip out to this teeny tiny park in Hamilton, Ohio, and there is a Hollow Earth monument. It's very cool. The history behind it and the idea behind the whole Hollow Earth movement is pretty fascinating. It's still one of those things like the Flat Earth Society that it's very easily disproven, but it's an interesting rabbit hole to kind of dive down. Sure. So, yeah.
I'm more of the Hall & Oates movement, but anyway.
What else do you have on Shift Beers besides the burp count, which is the only reason that people stick around to listen to our podcast to hear our Shift Beers recap? Because everyone knows that Shift Beers is hilariously fun to listen to.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
It is the most fun Cincinnati podcast out there that we have the absolute privilege to listen to.
The only thing I have is sort of, it's involved, but adjacent.
Okay.
So our friends from up north,
Yes, I wanted to talk about them too.
the Newbert Report,
Hell yeah,
had to
Newbert.
return the favor of the FU that Shift Beers gave them. So Shift Beers said F them, and then Newbert Report had to, in the beginning of their latest episode, had to return the favor and F them.
Yes. So the Newbert Report, it is a duo located up in Saskatchewan, Canada.
Swift Current, Saskatchewan.
Yes. They do a podcast where they don't try craft beers, they test craft beers from Canada and beyond. Right. They have a whole international segment that Shift Beer sponsors.
This is your Shift Beer of the Week.
Shift Beer of the Week. They also talk about hockey a lot. During the hockey season, outside of the hockey season, it tends to be more about the beer, less about the sports ball or the sports puck, depending on how you talk about it. But I'll tell you what, those guys are amazing. I love that we have been able to connect with them purely through the podcasting community.
Yep.
Without Shift Beers, we would not have known that the Newbert Report existed. And my God, they are some of the funniest, best people north of the border that I have ever
I know they're not
had the
making
privilege
any,
of met.
I know they're not making any promises, but the rumor is they might be here around Oktoberfest season.
At least the Newbert side of the Newbert Report. I think the Duff side of the Newbert Report is still trying to figure out logistics, but if they can make it to
I'll take off from all my
or
jobs.
Anytime, absolutely.
I'll take off from all my jobs to hang out with them.
They are going to have such a blaze. I would love to be able to hang out with them and show them what Cincinnati craft beer, not American craft, but Cincinnati craft beer, what it's about, what our whole community is about, and it'll be amazing if they're able to make it down there, or even if Newbert's able to make it down here.
Yeah, be a lot of fun.
But shout out to them. They love using your Marco Freeman deep thoughts with Newbert. They don't do it every single episode, but they do it in most episodes, and it's hilarious. And just the camaraderie that has come out of just being podcasters is beyond amazing. So please listen to the Newbert Report if you have any interest in craft beer, even Canadian craft beer, which a lot of what they have we don't see down here.
Right.
But if you have any interest in it, please listen to them. If you like hockey, listen to them. They do talk about other sports. They talk about the NBA, the NFL, the CFL, the Canadian Football League.
Yep.
Mostly hockey, but if nothing else, it is a fun conversation that they always have. They do broadcast all their episodes on YouTube. But Newbert, we love you guys so much. Thank you for shouting us out, even though what we do really doesn't impact your podcast. What you do really doesn't impact our podcast. But we are all part of the craft beer community in a global sense. And we cannot thank you enough for talking to us, for just the friendship that we formed over this. And we hope to be able to meet you in person sometime soon. Absolutely, Julia. Couldn't have said it better myself. Yes. So with that, is there anything else on Shift Beers, or do you want to go ahead and get into the burp count? The most important part. Let's go. Let's just get into the burp count. Maybe we can get those tacos. All right. Would you? Taco. Yes, there's still time, and Peggy and Nacho are invited to get tacos with us. Yeah. The rest of the Shift Beers crew, Beth is always invited. Yeah, always. Chris and Josh and Brian, maybe. They show up uninvited anyway. This is true. Wherever. Although they weren't here today on Mug Club Tuesdays for BC's Bottle Lodge Montgomery, where you get $2 off every pint you get if you're a Mug Club member. Shout out to BC's Bottle Lodge Montgomery and the Mug Club program. So there's one podcast that we decided, very early on in our podcasting life, that we said this podcast is perfect for a drinking game, and that's Shift Beers. Hell yeah. And what we do is we count the number of burps you hear on Shift Beers, and then we tally them up, let you know the total number of burps based off of an average, let's say, swallow of a liquid. We're using 2 ounces as the average, and then we let you know how many
how many ounces that is in total, and then how many pints you would have had to drink if you followed the game. And Shift Beers lets you know essentially that in the beginning of their show, most recently. And so they don't hold back. They let it rip. And
I'll tell you what, there was a lot of quality burps in this episode, so I was worried the quantity wouldn't be where we expect them to be. Especially because Chris was not on this episode. I don't think we mentioned that.
Right.
So it was only 3 members of the Shift Beers crew, Beth, Josh, and Brian, who actually showed up, probably because Corey was making food. I'm guessing that's the only reason Brian was there, but they brought it.
Right.
They brought it this week. The total number of burps for episode 77 of Shift Beers, Old School Bangers, was 67.
Wow.
67 burps, which is 134 ounces, which is 8.37 pints of your favorite beverage.
Oh, that's a good evening right there.
You're having a hell of a good time. So good job, guys and gal, for...
Yeah, good job, team.
There were some pre-burps in there that they were able to follow through with.
Yeah.
It got a little wet sounding. It was definitely something, but man,
it was something.
They did a good job. And I do have to say, I didn't know if I was going to mention this or not. I was a dumbass last week, and I don't know how to do the maths. They had, I think I had written down 102 ounces of beer, but let's see, 10, 20, 30, 40. They had 61 ounces of beer. Or, I'm sorry, 61 burps, which is 122 ounces of beer. For whatever reason, my dumbass brain said 102 ounces, so I left 10 ounces off of last week's total. So my apologies for the inaccuracy there. I don't think anyone would have noticed, but because we are a very ethical podcast,
we're a truth pod.
It is all about the truth. I wanted to make sure that I recognize that I made a mistake last week.
Look, and we're fine with doing that. You know it. Yeah. If you have a platform, if you have a microphone, you talk long enough, you're going to say something that is inaccurate or maybe inappropriate, and we are not outside of those bounds. Yeah, we are. So I mean, that's the truth. That's what we got, and.
And we don't have any more podcasts to cover.
No, Julie, you still got that IPA in there?
I have maybe 2 ounces left. In this glass. So it is the perfect amount to cheers with. Mark, was there anything else you wanted to cover before we wrap up this episode? Episode 39 of Truth, Beer, and Consequences? Or should I tell all the folks how they can follow and support us?
No, I'm good. Please let everybody know how they can follow and support us.
All right. Just like the major birthday bash that is happening in the back of the house behind us, you can follow us at all of your favorite social media platforms at Truth Beer Pod. Email us any of your ideas, suggestions at truthbeerpod@gmail.com. Any complaints, please direct them to @RagingHop on the Twitters, on the Twitter sphere.
The Elon Musks.
The Elon Musks, yes. That is going to be, if we get an edit button, I am down with him buying the Twitter sphere. If we don't get an edit button,
I don't watch news. I don't know where this whole whole thing originated, where Elon Musk needed to buy Twitter, but
he had ants up his ass and didn't know what to do with his money, so he's like, "Oh, buy the Twitters."
Well, he could sponsor Truth Beer Pod.
He could. Elon Musk. So at Elon Musk, everybody who listens and say, "Yo, sponsor Truth Beer Pod," even for a single episode, it would be amazing. But to recap all of this, at Truth Beer Pod on all your social media platforms, truthbeerpod@gmail.com if you want to send us a message that breaks the character limits of the social media sphere that you're in. All of our episodes are out on the YouTubes except for our 0.5s, our calendar entries, because those are very date specific. Didn't make sense to put them on YouTube. If you want them out there, let us know and I'll gladly do that. And go to truthbeerpod.com. All of the links to our social media platforms are out there, as well as a big blue support us link, so you can toss a couple of bucks our way to either get additional pints of beer during the shows or to help us upgrade our equipment, maybe get a little bit closer to that video content that we want to do for you guys.
We do want to do that,
but aren't entirely sure how to do or have the equipment to do. other than that, Marco, was there anything else you wanted to talk about?
The Reds are terrible.
They are
just terrible. I mean,
maybe we'll have a bonus sports ball podcast this week. Maybe we won't. It all depends.
It's 5-1, top of the fourth. I just watched. So where we sit here at our gracious podcast host, I am facing a television, which also I'm facing the bar.
Yes.
Julia faces the opposite way.
Yes.
And I just
watched the door.
The goddamn shit.
Oh, hold on. I got a button for that, Marco.
Shit.
See, there you go.
And they're so bad. I'm so mad about how bad they are. But anyways, thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Mom.
Rachel. Thank you to
everybody.
my Josh.
Thank you to my kids. Shout out to everyone.
Thank you to my Josh. Thank you to my mom. I don't know if my sister listens or her family, but thank you to absolutely everyone that listens to this episode week after week. We love you guys so very much. We couldn't do this without you. Listen to the podcast that we recap, because without them having listenership to put out content, we don't have any content to put out. So listen to them, follow them, subscribe to them, do all of the things you do for us for them. And Marco, you have a plastic cup, so the cheers isn't going to sound the same.
Yeah, I know.
That's okay.
But I couldn't put this in my mug.
No, you don't put a High Life in your mug. No. That's just not right.
So what are you going to do next week, Julia?
I'm going to listen to a bunch of Cincinnati craft beer podcasts, and I'm going to be here at BC's Bottle Lodge Montgomery to talk about them with you, my favorite person in the world.
Sounds like a great idea. Cheers.
Cheers. You can't hear it because of the plastic cup, but we did it. We will see you guys next week. Bye.